Friendship blossoms into potential romance, but physical limitations and insecurities hold me back from confessing my feelings to him. I am originally from Argentina and have been writing letters back and forth with a boy from the United States for about 13 years now. When I was younger, our school received letters from a class in America and we sent some back. Barely anyone in my class got sent more than one, but my partner and I kept sending letters and did for about 3 years. Then we started sending emails, but we also kept sending regular written letters. More time passed and we added each other on WhatsApp and chatted more. So over time it went from monthly at best because of slow mail to weekly to daily. We have video chatted here and there, and it's weird because we have dated other people in this time, but I've never been able to be serious with anyone because I want my first everything to be with him. We used to voice call almost every day on my walk back from class because it lined up with his commute from work. But then he got into a relationship and the pandemic he didn't commute and couldn't talk to me as much with a girlfriend. He is single now. My problem is he definitely views me as a little sister. Argentinian school programs are very long versus the USA, and he graduated early because of advanced classes before uni, so I have been a student for a long time compared to him. He also lives a very different life than me. He runs every morning, goes to the gym a lot, is a tall and strong person with high activity and a lot of friends. I am very frail from a muscle disease I got when I was younger and did physical therapy for a long time to be able to walk and now run a little but not much. I am like 168 centimeters and 50 kilograms, so I look weak. I lost many of my friends when I got sick and am much quieter. I know his exes have been fit gym girls and very outgoing. My employer had an opportunity to work on site in New York City, and I applied for it and got it. I'm wth like a week ago and am in company supplied housing for the next 6 months. I want to meet him in person for the first time and tell him how I feel, but I am very afraid he won't feel the same. I never told him about it or that I'm here, but we always talk about how he should visit me or I should visit him and how he'd show me this city. I want to just visit his apartment like in the telenovelas, but I know that is awkward. He bought a really nice apartment during the lockdowns and I often joked I would like to see it in person and he always said to stop by, and it was funny because I obviously couldn't being so far away, but now it is a subway away. I think it is worth taking the chance and risking our friendship because I don't feel like I can move on with my life without at least trying. How do I approach? Yes, I have learned from reading all the replies to be calm and have simple expectations. It will be weird for sure, cannot expect it to be perfect fairy tale. Update 1. Just got back home and done updating my friends. It went really well. I will agonize over 1 or 2 moments tonight, but it was basically perfect. We got breakfast at a place a few blocks from me, and he got there like a minute before me and we hugged at first sight, which was exactly what I needed to feel comfortable and know it wouldn't be too awkward. It felt like talking to any of my best friends or family and felt just as casual as when we talked through text or FaceTime. He had stories saved up. Like he said, there's a bunch of stories he always wanted to tell me, but that you need to do it in person so you can see how the other person responds or because it makes the story more intense. I definitely made it clear I like him though, and he didn't say anything to stop me from being a little flirty. He also paid for me, which I took as a nice sign. We walked around a bit, but I struggled a lot. Not even because of me, but despite wedge shoes he was like 15 centimeters taller and has a bigger stride, and he walks like New Yorkers so very fast. He slowed down for me, but every once in a while he would speed up to pass a smoker. We ended up passing a clothing store and he got me sneakers. I was afraid of it because I do not make a lot and cannot afford much. I'm basically on Argentina pay here, but housing is free. He bought them for me and I made a whole thing about how I was going to pay him back because I felt guilty and I definitely made it awkward. But he said the shoes looked cute and they felt much better, so I got over it for now. We got into some deep talk accidentally a few times. I joked that I was thinking of surprising him last night, and he said he's glad I didn't. Thank you, commenters, because his flight back was cancelled, so he was on standby all day and was at the airport when he called me last night. He works for a startup and his boss flew her family and my pen pal to Miami because the company is starting to talk buyout, and she told my pen pal to think of a Florida house for the taxes. Plus her kids go to the university there. She wants to hire him for a new business idea she has, and he is seriously considering it because she is his first and only boss and has promoted and developed him a lot. She actually knew the company selling where he lives and gave him an advance on his bonus plus a little more and told him to buy it before the pandemic ended and property in NYC got expensive again. So we started talking about like what do we want to do when we are older and where do we want to be. And I was worried because on TV Miami is a very like party city, and he said that was his concern too, but that there are nice quiet areas and suburbs to raise a family. His grandparents also live in Florida now and they raised him when his parents died, so he said he was also thinking other states but that Florida made the most sense. He did joke he liked the idea of moving to Miami because he likes Latinas, which I thought was funny because none of his exes are, and I took that as a huge hint. We also talked about the love/hate so far with New York and how it's so busy and has everything but also is loud and looks hard to raise a family. When I said I could never live here long term, he asked if I meant New York or America, and I clarified New York, and he asked if I'd really ever be okay with leaving family back home in Argentina, and I said yes very quickly, haha, because Argentina is in a bad spot economically and my family can always visit me if I get a good job in America that can pay for that. Before I left, my family told me to try and find a better company in America and stay here, lol. There are also Messi Argentina and Barcelona and now Miami shirts everywhere. So every time we would see one we'd call it out and it just felt really fun walking around with him. There's these light carts pulled by bikes that play really loud music and I've never felt so comfortable in my life that music could make me move and I felt like shimmying up to him whenever they passed by. So it went very well. He invited me over for dinner next week and I said I'm free tomorrow, which for me is next week, but was super awkward that I just said that out loud as he definitely meant like Thursday or something, so I will remember that tonight as I stare at the ceiling, but he said Sunday works and that he will get some ingredients tonight. Update 2. Can't sleep and also didn't want to distract from the actual questions here, so let's do this late at night. A lot of people wanted an update on how things went since we met. I gave a quick river of thoughts on Saturday here and then for Sunday to now it's been a whirlwind to say the least. Sunday I went to his place for dinner really early. I texted him I was bored and asked if I could hang out there, and he's like sure. He has a really nice apartment in the Flatiron and it was something I always would imagine what it looked like. He runs a clean home, and you can tell it's not the kind of Ian that someone just put together. When we did the tour, I went through his closets and it's basically only work or gym clothes, which I thought was funny. I really liked the gym clothes and it was almost all from one brand, so apparently their store is like 2 stops away and he convinced me to get some. I then learned that shirts and shorts can be expensive. We went to some jewelry store and I didn't realize at first how much things cost. I just browsed and said what things looked nice as someone set up a trial room. When I found out that it was so expensive I almost threw up and I felt like I wasted his time even coming here, but between the rush of trying things on and him telling me I looked cute and it messed with my brain and he did get it all for me. And it was a lot. Like I'm embarrassed to say how much it was, that's how bad it was. We went back and he cooked dinner, which he said he enjoys because he works a lot, almost always past dinner, so he'll often have a cooking call with his coworkers where they're either off camera or on camera and everyone's picking up their kids from camp or cooking or at the gym or whatever else. It was probably the fanciest meal I've ever had in my life to that point, no exaggeration. We watched a movie afterwards and talked a ton. We again got into deep stuff, and it's weird like we've known each other for a decade but haven't met in person and truly known each other in some ways. My friends were always so surprised that I told him so much personal stories and that he would do the same, but it always is easier to tell someone you don't see in person these private things. So how do you measure the time to get to know each other? When do you say you are dating? All that became what we were talking about. The other aspect was getting the super important stuff out of the way, like where do we want to be long term? What kind of life would we want to live? What role for our partners? Him considering moving to Miami is probably the fairy tale story, because if you ask anyone from Argentina where in the US they would want to move, it would probably mostly be LA and Miami. A lot of the Latinos in NYC are from Central America or the islands. Miami, it feels like, is more Cubans, Venezolanos, and Argentinians. I told him my faith is important to me, and I knew he was Catholic, but it was nice to confirm that he wouldn't have a problem with it. I also told him I wanted to wait for marriage to have sex and he said he's cool with that. It's proving difficult because ever since the weekend it's physically distracting me. I can't sleep, I get distracted at work, I cannot stop thinking about it. It's so silly, but it's like being a teenager again. Tuesday we actually went out to a little park date and walk around the area too. And similar, we talked about what we are and what we want to be. I know he's probably annoyed by it, but I asked him if like these are dates and if not can I take him on one, and he said they're like date 0 and that he will take me out on a true first date the next day. We talked about like what we would look like as far as dating, because I am here until halfway through December and then I go back to Buenos Aires. He was open to distance, which was something I was dreading, because a lot of people aren't into that, and so I was afraid he'd say like, oh, we can date again when you're back in the USA. I probably won't get lucky and get a project in the USA again, to be honest, at least not New York. He said if it gets to that point we can talk vacation visas and he can visit me for a few months since time zone is similar and his job is remote flexible. He is going to visit Miami again in a few weeks and invited me because I was so curious about some of the places he was thinking of. I figure if he wants my input or me to come along, he sees a future with me. Today was our first date and I know the commentary will be to slow down, but yeah, I am truly in love with my pen pal more than I thought I could be. He picked me up with flowers. He rightly assumed I didn't have anything to put them in either and had a glass thing, I forget the word for, to hold them. He got me a dress from Reformation, which I had mentioned all the rich foreign workers in my office wear. Like I mentioned it once in like thousands of things I've said over the past few days, and I know I can't keep having him spend a lot on me, but obviously I cried and embarrassed myself that way. He also got me nice shoes, again. I changed, I made a big deal over how much he was spending on me, and he said that he knows he can't buy my affection but that his love language is gift giving. The dinner was one of those things you see on TV. Like literally it was from the old guy that had a guest appearance on The Bear. I mentioned to him I was watching and he said he wouldn't spoil it, but that one day maybe he could spoil me, and I didn't realize one day would be today. I also didn't know food got that fancy. We then went to see a Broadway show, and that was on my bucket list for my time in New York. Hadestown has an Argentine lead, and so we booked that, and I'm like, wow, first of all it was an amazing performance. If you're in NYC you should see it, but also it was just like the fanciest I've ever felt or lived in my life. Like I come from a middle class background in Buenos Aires, but with the economy the way it is, middle class is just that you're not homeless and can afford food. A lot of the city and country is not doing that well and they're trying to turn things around, but it is not easy. Even if we just walk in the park or hang out at his place, he just makes me feel like everything I say matters, that he hears it, and that I mean a lot to him. And then he dropped me back off at my place and I have spent the past few hours laying in bed texting my mom and friends. I feel an immense amount of guilt that he spends this much on me. Like I even asked him if he does this for all the girls he dates, and he says no way, it's not good dating in NYC and that he usually does coffee or lunch dates at most. It makes me feel so special and I was telling my mom and she said that if it works out, one day we will have kids and it won't matter what happens that he will owe me because that is not easy. When my dad called me the other day, he said that it's because I am in his city. If we met in a neutral city or in BA, he would hopefully be as generous but I would feel more in control. I don't know if I want to though. I know if he visits BA, I would want to show him around and everything, but I like clinging to him sometimes and letting him lead. I will eventually post a follow-up question because there's so much I don't know how to wrap my mind around. Like if I do try and follow to Miami on a visa, it won't be a work one, so I'll not be allowed to make money and I'd be entirely dependent on him and that makes me feel guiltier. If he visits me, will I actually feel more in control? Do I want or need to? Or am I okay with things if he is okay with it? I also need like sedatives. I don't know how to get urges out of my mind because I never really had to deal with them when I was younger. Even with past boyfriends we didn't do anything more than kiss and I never felt like I wanted to have sex with them all too much. Also his boss is like a 50-year-old lady with kids in college who he admits is like a mother figure for him. She actually turned down his application when he first applied to his company, but when the person they selected backed out, they came back to him even though he was a fresh grad and inexperienced. She's been a corporate finance leader for years and is CFO there. She helped him buy his apartment, wants to start a business and hire him in Miami, and has invited him out to vacations. He thinks it's because she knows he doesn't have family and would otherwise spend Christmas and stuff alone. I don't mean to imply there's anything inappropriate there, I really don't think there is, but I am jealous of her as she's super smart and successful and of him because he has a mentor that pushes him every day while I do not and I don't think any of my peers do. I also have in the back of my mind like why wouldn't he just date someone like himself, someone super ambitious and similar to one of the leaders I work with? Wouldn't he make a lot more combined income and be more comfortable and be able to be fancy every day versus every once in a while? Her husband is also in finance and makes a lot, like he could have that? Why date an Argentinian architect who doesn't want to work for the Gensler or ACOM type companies where you can actually make good money? Now on to the next update. Husband shares hotel room with mystery woman during bowling trip, leaving wife feeling upset and suspicious about the cheating affair. My 36F husband, 42 male, is currently in Las Vegas for a national bowling tournament. He is there with his mom and her friends/folks from their bowling league. He is an avid bowler, bowls in a Tuesday night league, often in state tournaments and sometimes in national tournaments. Typically I go with and sometimes bowl myself. This year, we decided I would not go, but stay home with our 3 boys, ages 4, 8, 10, due to heat and smoke in Vegas in July. My husband and I have been married for 11 years. This is his second marriage. His first marriage failed because he walked in on his wife cheating on him with another man. I have never, not once, thought that he would ever be intimate with another woman while he was with me. He's just not that type. So, onto this trip. Typically when he goes on a trip without me, at least one a year given my job and time off requirements, he stays in a hotel room with his mom or our boys. 3 nights ago, I was on FaceTime with him while he was in his hotel room. It was really nice and he was talking about possibly taking a nap for lack of sleep. I asked if he had his room to himself, a cause that would have been awesome, and he said oh no? Is sharing with me. I asked him who that was, and he said something, I don't remember, aside from she. I said wait what? And then he went on to explain that he was supposed to share the room with his mom's boyfriend, but plans changed and now he is sharing the room with another woman on the trip. He told me that I played cornhole with her last month at a get-together. I reminded him who I had played cornhole with, him and a girl, but not one with the name he was giving me. I have no idea who this woman is, at which point he got very confused. He did not understand why I was upset or frustrated, so I dropped it because I did not want to deter from his time and his bowling. I know I should have asked how he would have felt if the roles were reversed, but I didn't. Partly because I didn't want to fight, we hardly ever fight, while the kids were up, and partly because I didn't want to hear him chalk it up to my imagination. I have hardly slept since that night, and my dreams have been chock full of worst case scenarios, and still I have not really brought it up again. There have been a few occasions in which he has talked about taking naps and how lame he is in Vegas. I have mentioned a few times, sort of sarcastically as a side, that he would be having more fun if he were sharing a room with me, or if I was there instead of his present company, but he has brushed it all aside. So here we are, he has spent the last 3 nights in a hotel room with a woman that is not me or his mother, Amita, for being upset. Update 1. Okay, so I took some advice and grew a backbone. I texted him a little while ago instead of waiting until he got home. He and our boys are leaving for another trip tomorrow morning. I could not get the time off of work, so I wanted to make sure we had the conversation fully before he left again. Before I give the update, I wanted to make a couple of things clear. I do trust my husband. He has never shown he would be the kind of person to cheat, and that is not what truly concerned me. Even though I did have some pretty unpleasant dreams. My issue was that he was not upfront and honest with me. If I had done the same thing, he would have lost his mind, understandably. This is why I started the original post with "he's just not that type." We do generally have great communication. The issue here is that I like to have this kind of conversation face to face rather than over the phone. It's just not something I like to hash out while we are not in the same space. Obviously, in this situation, I should have made the exception, and have now done so. Now, for the update, I texted him today to tell him that this situation has been bothering me for the last 3 days. I had questions and we needed to have this conversation. I asked who the woman was, how old she was, and why didn't he tell me about the situation before I found out by accident. There was a mix-up with the rooms, something about someone not going, so people were shuffled. He was paired with a woman about my age. He said he didn't think it would be a big deal and didn't want to inconvenience everyone else on the trip. He also said he did not want to upset me, which is why he didn't write out tell me about it. He did tell me that I never had anything to worry about, and he made sure they weren't in the room alone together aside from when they were sleeping. I know, but I really do believe him on this. I was honest with him and told him that if roles were reversed, out of respect for him, I would have called him right away to make sure he was okay with it. I told him that while I trust him implicitly, I should not have found out the way that I did. And he should not have blown off my concern. I told him that the lack of upfront communication felt suspicious, regardless of intention or what actually happened. As for not upsetting me, I told him I would have understood and not be upset if he had just been honest. He has apologized profusely. I told him next time to just communicate. He is adamant there will not be a next time. So, call me naive if you want, but I am dropping it at this point. He will be home this evening and I intend on having a nice evening with him before I don't see him again for another 2 weeks. Thank you for the advice. I cried it out when I found out her age, but getting this off my chest has been very relieving. Husband is coming home tonight and we will talk. I'm hoping it's 82-year-old grandma smile update too. I am not handling this as well as I thought I was. I had decided to let it go. I know he wasn't doing anything with this other woman. You can disagree and call me crazy if you'd like, but I do know that. However, as much as I have tried, I can't get past the fact that he made the decision to do something he knew I wouldn't be okay with, and not tell me about it. It all feels just so messed up. I have talked to a few of my coworkers. I don't have really any friends that aren't friends of his that I talk to on a regular basis, and there is no way I will talk to my family because that is a shitstorm I can't handle right now, and they are all shocked and more angry for me than I have let myself be. Most of them know him, the kind of person he is and what ended his first marriage. He used to work at the same company. We had less than 24 hours together before his mom and all 3 of my children took their trip to the other side of the United States. I have been sitting in my feels and will continue to do so until they get back, almost another week from now. I was on the phone with them this evening before they went to bed, and one of the first things my husband said to me was, "I'm sharing a bed with a redhead tonight." And I almost came unglued before I realized he was talking about one of our boys. We have 3 sons. After a very long pause, I said, "You better be talking about," and I was so angry I don't understand how he didn't pick up on that. Every conversation we have had has been short and to the point because I'm really just not interested in talking to him. I have been calling my oldest son, and talking with my boys instead. His mom hasn't really said much to me, which makes me think he has said something to her. Which is fine, of course. I really don't care about that. Bottom line is, I don't know what to do. It is midnight at home. I tried to go to bed 2 hours ago and just could not stop sobbing, so I got up and let it go. It felt good to get it out, but I know I need to talk to someone. I have support lines through work I can call, but won't tonight. Far too many drinks and I don't want to bring that into it as well, but I will call tomorrow. I know I should be upset and angry and not let it go. But I am afraid when I do talk to a professional they will say I'm blowing it out of proportion. I will still call, but I need to get my head straight first. He is bicycling for 7 days, over 400 miles, so as much as I want to tear him a new one right now, especially after his completely insensitive and clueless joke this evening, I have not. Because I want him home safe and sound. Regardless of my feelings in this moment, the most important thing is that my children's dad comes home safe so we can hash this out at least in the same city and not while he is 1,000 miles away. With his mom. And my children. Oop, it sure does feel that way right now.